So I had a revelation about the mxxx by Melda Production. It is that it's more than meets the eye. Not only is it an everything bagel, which is created to house most kinds of effects and synthesizers, so that you could have everything at your disposal in one cohesive application environment, but also it applies to my idea to make an articulation instrument, which I'm actually in the process of sort of working on that in the back burner. But it's the more I work on it, the more it's scary because it goes deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole of sound design in terms of ways to approach it. But what I realized with mxxx is that you can basically take that instrument and put it on any part of a piece or any layer of a piece, and from this you can instantly affect or change how the sound is performing. So if you want something to bend, you could make it bend. If you want something with the flanger, you can have the flanger. Now, this is a kind of a known concept with multi-effects processing, but what makes the mxxx different is its level of sophistication. It's basically its application, because it's a very complicated system that basically it houses every kind of effect that's important in one module. And because of that, you're talking about a world of DSP on top of anything you need. So at any point in any piece of music, this can be applied, it can be injected, it can be used to manipulate what is occurring underneath it. And it's a very sophisticated tool because of that. So I realized that if I wanted to make something freezable, I don't have to go to the freeze plugin. If I want to make something bend or whatever, I can do this. So that's where the articulator concept meets this mxxx very well, because you weren't able to do that before, where you were able to essentially contort audio and sort of warp it any way you desire on the fly quickly with this tool, but in a very deep way. And so it's really impressive because of that. So in other words, you could regenerate most portions of audio with this tool and mangle them to become entirely different conceptions. And you're talking about spectral level plugins that are inside of this unit that can be layered and contorted. So there's so much going on with that I'm barely like tapping the surface, just trying to describe how powerful that notion is. But I don't think there's a lot of tools that actually have this sort of multi-effect capacity or capability other than the mxxx. And not only that, because the mxxx is programmable, it takes it to yet another level, and that's where I will eventually hope to get around to finishing this articulator concept. And so I just thought it was really interesting that one unit can basically turn anything into anything using something like this. Now, it may take some time, but really it's pretty impressive, including the fact that it has sampling systems and synthesis systems that are built into it, but especially like when you think about how sample replacement technology works in systems like the Drumagog or other drum replacement tools. There's other ways you could go about sort of superimposing things onto existing sources of audio. So while it's also really cool, it's got this capability down the line to be even more if they choose to sort of develop this system as a replacement mechanism. And so, in other words, any part of your system or audio in your production that you wanted to be able to completely transform, you would simply really be able to realize this. But because of the wet-dry factor, you have this sort of magic quality where it can become something totally unique and unexpected and unheard, basically. which is just unfathomable how much you could do with something like this. So I just wanted to mention that before I ramble on too much about this. It's a very impressive plugin, and it takes me about 5 minutes to just say how impressive this notion is versus how long it takes to actually implement the technologies inside this tool to be able to do just very specific things, which takes a little bit longer. But I definitely wanted to give it a respect that, a testimonial, if you will, that it is a super cool tool. And it's convenient because Waves and other suppliers, they have a lot of cool plugins, but they're not necessarily in a all cohesive system the way that this is. Now, Guitar Rig, is something somewhat similar, or the Reactor instrument, but it's a lot different in terms of programmability and what's provided, and it's not, for whatever reason, as intuitively done as this Melda stuff is done. Because if a person like me can get involved with creating effects and instruments, we're talking about a very inviting programming environment versus the Reactor system, which has always been kind of a pain, because you got to really have an understanding of ins and outs of the modules and whatnot, or you're going to get nothing coming out. They went too deep, making the transformer sound a certain way and all this stuff. And so it's like you can do really incredible things and create really incredible designs with it, but it takes too much learning curve to get a really impressive result. Where it's sort of the opposite with the Melda stuff. There's much less learning curve, but you get much more impressive result. So that's why I really appreciate it. I may eventually also try to make a Groove Shadows module for Reactor, but again, because it's so much more time consuming to do that, it's like that's on the back burner, and I'm trying to get some other things accomplished first. But I got to give kudos to Melda Production for creating this very unique tool and very well done implementation of all these incredibly cool technologies right at your disposal very quickly, and also exceptionally high quality and number of choices in all the little modules you can put together that can impact sound.